To kick things off, please take a minute to answer the poll question, and then we will go ahead and review the results together. Thank you for answering the poll question. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results with everyone. So, out of those of you who answered the poll question, did you know that you can contribute data to the Living Atlas? 64% did in fact know that they could contribute their data, and 36% did not. And in both presentations today, both about the vector tile, base maps, and elevation, you'll learn that you can contribute your base map data and your elevation data to the Living Atlas, and then they'll be included in the base maps and the services available through the Living Atlas. So thank you for answering the poll question. And now we're going to go ahead and get started with the main part of our presentation. So again, before we get started with our first presentation, there are a few housekeeping items that we need to discuss. First, this webinar is being recorded, and it should be available by the beginning of next week, if not before. And also, I want to point out that I've shared a handout with all of you that includes some links to additional resources. Please feel free to go ahead and grab that handout, and the links that are in the handout will also be included in the follow-up email that you'll receive. And the recording will be available on our Living Atlas of the World ArcGIS videos page, the Living Atlas Community Webinars ArcGIS videos page, and the Living Atlas of the World discussion group on GeoNet. It can be accessed from the Living Atlas of the World website landing page, and in the email that the links are included in, you'll also receive a link to the recorded webinar. We do have some great presentations lined up for you today, but before we get started with our first topic, I'd like to take a minute and introduce today's speakers. Presenting the vector tile base maps, we have Andy and Wes. Andy has been a project manager for the ArcGIS Online base maps for the past 4 years. He has over 20 years of cartographic experience prior to joining Esri. And Wes is a cartographer on the content team. He hails from Canada and has been living in Southern California and working at Esri for the past 7 years. And then for our elevation topic, we have Rajinder and Keith. Rajinder has more than 13 years of experience in GIS and remote sensing. He started his tenure at Esri about 9 years ago and currently leads the Community Elevation Program. Keith is a product engineer for ArcGIS content with the software product team at Esri. He serves as the Ocean Content Curator for the Living Atlas of the World. While the speakers are presenting their topics, please feel free to send us your questions through the questions panel while the speakers are presenting. After each presentation is finished, we will dedicate some time to answering your questions. Also, if there is any time at the end, we can spend some additional time answering questions. We will wrap up the webinar with some quick announcements. So let's go ahead and get started with our first presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and change the presenter over to Andy.
Hi everyone, this is Andy. I'm going to be talking about our vector tiles and primarily our vector tile base maps. So introducing the vector tiles. What are the Esri vector tile base maps? Well, they're base maps that are cached and delivered as vector tiles in the PDF format. They're rendered client-side, and they're based on a set of resource files that are delivered with the vector tiles. We're using the Mapbox code base with our own custom development. And those resources include styles, a root.json file, sprites, which are patterns and symbols and road shields, fonts, and an info file, which is just really the controls of the fonts and the sprites that are being used. Esri is generating the vector tiles with development versions of Arcgis Pro. Currently we're using a pre-release of Pro 1.4, so we have a little bit advanced tools that aren't yet available to our users. The vector basemaps display in the most current desktop web browsers. Some of the older browsers like IE8 won't be able to handle the vector basemaps, but any of the newer Chrome and Firefox, you won't have any problems. And we do have future plans to display the maps in the various desktop and mobile apps that we support. So how are the vector basemaps created? And what is the data that's included in that tile set? So just like for our raster maps, we have a collection of commercial data, which is primarily here. We have community data, which thankfully you guys contribute to us. And we also use open source data, including OpenStreetMap and other open data sources that we gather. That's all combined into our central database. And for raster maps, we have to cache multiple sets of all the different basemap styles. They're cached at multiple scales, and each of those style sets contain terabytes of data and terabytes of cache. Compare that with our vector tiles. We create a single tile set. The tile set's scalable, and it's mere gigabytes, about 20 gigabytes. From that single vector tile set, we have multiple resource files for all the different styles. And each one of those resource files are only megabytes in size. So these new styles, they closely resemble many of the existing Esri raster base maps, such as streets with relief, without relief, our topographic or community base map, the light gray, dark gray canvas maps that are popular, and terrain with labels. But we've also introduced some new styles unique to vectors, including the navigation style, streets at night, and an imagery hybrid, which is both transportation and boundaries and places combined working together. So our initial release includes 9 different vector basemap styles. And as I said before, they're all built from a single vector tile service. Although the contents of the styles do differ. Something like topo or street will have a lot more content in it than the canvas map. That mimics our raster maps. How are they available? The vector tiles are published as tile layers where you can add to existing maps as a base map or as an overlay layer, or you can use them as web maps. And some of the web maps that we provide for our vector maps contain rasters underneath, such as the topo map includes a world hillshade, and the hybrid map includes the world imagery base map. One of the big questions we get is, where can I find the vector tile base maps? Currently, the program is still in the beta phase, so we have a group on ArcGIS Online. The group title is Vector Basemaps Beta. It includes the web maps and the tile layers. You can review the online descriptions and the items to give you some information about it. I encourage you to bookmark this page. That's a quick reference that you can go to and pick any of the different styles. Or if you search in the Living Atlas or in ArcGIS Online, you can search for owner, that's Esri_vector. And that's actually the syntax to put into the search box. Owner : Esri_vector. And that'll bring up all the tile layers that are available to add to your online map. So a quick timeline. Last UC 2015, we presented our initial showing of the vector base maps. In November of 2015, we released a beta 1 version online. In May of 2016, we released a beta 2 version, which included a brand new tile set and included a new URL for those tiles. It had updated root.json syntax, new data features were added, and it also included a whole bunch of new data, including community data. So where are we going? Throughout 2016, we're going to continue with our beta 2x releases. And what we're going to do is speed up the releases. We're going to refine the settings files, and we're going to improve the styles and include more data features. And our plan is to exit the beta phase later in 2016. And some of the requirements for exiting beta is for JavaScript API improvements, for better map display. Because currently you will notice that there is a limitation that some labels do get clipped. And we are working to improve that. We're also going to exit beta as more Esri clients utilize the vector tile format, such as Survey 123, Collector, Workforce, Explorer for ArcGIS, and now that it's released, Arcgis Pro 1.3. Future enhancements of the vector tile base maps is to continue adding contributor data and commercial data updates to get better mapping content at a more frequent cycle. Some of the additional data features that we're looking to add to mimic what's in our raster base maps include spot elevations, landform labels, contours, the ability to switch between community roads that our community is providing and commercial roads, and just overall how the user is able to customize the layers. So there's 4 main benefits of using the Esri vector tile base maps. One is that it's updated data that's cooked into a single tile set. That allows for a faster release time on our side. And a big plus for using the vector tile base maps is the user ability to style and customize the maps. And also the vector tiles present a better display on high-res devices. As I said, we're doing commercial and community updates. Our Community Maps program has more than 400 contributors and it continues to grow. Thank you very much. We have country-level contributors down to campus and almost individual building detail that are being contributed to the Living Atlas through the Community Maps program. The vector tiles are allowing us to reduce the time from data submission to release in the vector base maps, because they're cooked into a single tile set and that data gets spread out among all the map styles. We've published 6 blogs already talking about the Esri vector base maps. You can go to our blogs.esri.com and search for the tag vector base map. And we also have a PDF Esri vector base map reference document. That's available, the link is available in the resource that Tamara talked about for this webinar. It talks about layer detail, min-max zoom levels, the fonts that are available, and more information to help you customize the maps. So the benefits, they're served as a single vector tile set. There are multiple styles available as a starting point for your customization, and you're able to save a copy of the vector tile base map layer into your own ArcGIS Online account and do that customization. And we provide different ways to restyle and customize the maps. There are multiple styling apps available. You can edit the JSON file directly, or you can work with the JavaScript API. So I'm going to turn it over to Wes now to talk about styling the Esri vector tile base maps.
Thank you, Andy, and hello, webinar land. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the vector base map style editor, and I'm going to show you quickly how you can restyle one of our base maps. So the first thing that happens is when you get into this vector base map style editor, it's going to ask you to sign in to your ArcGIS Online account. Say OK to that. You'll get this familiar dialog box, and I'll sign in using my username, using my password. And What it'll do is it'll give you a little information box telling you what you can do in this app, a really brief overview. And this app, here it is. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to copy an Esri base map. So if you click this button here, it'll pop up this dialog and will show you those 9 different styles that Andy was talking about that we have made as our official styles right now that you have the ability to modify. What I recommend, if you haven't done this before, if this is your first time, start with the light gray canvas. It's the simplest of all the styles and it'll allow you to understand the data the best, and then you can maybe get into some of those other styles that has a little bit more detail. So what you do is you select it and you can title it down here. For my purposes, copy's fine, and say OK. And basically what you're doing is you're making a copy of that into your account, and now you can edit that. And it shows up here, and if you just click it in the table of contents, what it will do is it will load all the information for that map. And we can resize them, these dialog boxes, which is kind of nice. You can see here that this is the canvas map, but it's essentially your version now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to restylize it. Now, this part over here explains to you what's going on in this map. It sorts the source layers and it's alphabetical, so you can see that there's administration lines, airports. You can zoom down and see there's city, small scale information. So every detail that's in that map comes up in this style layer dialog box over here. And it explains other things too. It explains what the ID is, and that's not as important in this app as it is in, say, the JSON, but this little section is interesting. It shows you what zoom level that feature is available at. It also tells you what type it is, if it's a line or if it's a fill or it's a symbol. And over here, it tells you, well, what is it being colored as? How is it being stylized? You can see, for example, airports, they have a fill and an outline color. And you can go down and you can very quickly see what's going on in the map. You can see that these city large scales have a text and a halo. So let's change the style of the map a little bit. Pull this even, and you can see that there's this checkbox here. And a nice little thing that's available in this app is you can turn on and off features very quickly. You can see that some features have already been turned off. But if you want to turn off the land, for example, just click the box and the map will update and the land's gone. And you've essentially modified the map that quickly. And you can do that with a variety of features. It's probably best to show you how to change some colors. And there's a variety of ways to change colors in the map. And I'll show you a couple of reasons why this canvas map is a good one to start with. But let's go to the beautiful city of Vancouver. We're going to look at the airports down here. And we can go up to the table of contents and we can see it's alphabetical again. You can see the airport's broken apart into a few different sections. And I want to adjust the property color of the airport. And you can do that simply by selecting the fill color. It'll bring up this dialog box. You can choose one of the colors that are already in the map. Say there's a color map that you really like. You can choose that color here and apply that to your airport or any of those features that you selected. There's some predefined colors and palettes, or you can just choose this little color palette and select here, say OK, and you can see that the airport property area has been updated. And all those airport property areas in the entire vector tiles have been updated. So a really quick way to do a really quick color change for something that you specifically want to change. Now, one of the reasons that, maybe why you'd want to start with the canvas map is we've simplified it and we've grouped a lot of the colors together. So all the watercolors are grouped together, for example. And if you want to do a mass change on all water type features, you can go select this find by color. Here you can sort by different types, but we don't need to. You can select these colors and you can see, oh, I clicked that one, all the roads are this color, or all the boundary lines are this color, and it shows you the groupings of all those features. And you can click through them. That's another way to quickly see what's going on in the map. Here, this one I've selected has all the water features. You can see that they're all colored the same. Well, you can see that it's also showing up here in this replace section. If you click the second color, you can replace that color. And let's say we want to replace it with more of a darker navy or blue. You can say OK, replace color, and it updates all those colors in the map just like that. So you can see really quickly, especially with the canvas map, you can make really wholesale quick changes. Another thing you can do is, say you're looking around the map and you said, well, I just want to change this one color. If you click this pick color and select the land, for example, we'll zoom in a couple layers. If you select the land, you can see that, well, it's selected that color here, and this is all the colors, these are all the features that have that color in this map. And you can do a wholesale replace with those as well. You could say, well, let's change this to a slightly different color up here, say OK, replace colors, and it's replaced all those colors that you selected. So very, very quickly, you've modified actually over half of the features that you'd want to change in this map if you're just changing the color styles. You can do other things though as well. You can change the fonts on the map. So it's a travesty that Edmonton and Calgary are the same size. So let's change the size of Calgary to be a little bit bigger than Edmonton. And you can do that by changing the font. And if you look in here, we've really separated the city information so that you can change a lot of those elements. And this is one of those cases where you might want to go to the PDF to see what those things mean, or just play around with the map or app a little bit to get an understanding of what that city is or how we designated those cities. I know that this is city, small scale, extra large, non-capital. And you see I can just click it, and again you've got access to all those JSON elements. So more elements are available here than in any of the other sections. You can change the color here. If you wanted to change this to black, you could do that. You could change the layout. You can see that you can change like the size of the font. If you wanted to make Calgary a little bit bigger, you could change it to 16, change how spacing the letters. There's a lot of things available here. You can also change the font type. And we don't currently have a ton of fonts available, but those fonts are coming. I know we have Palatino Lino type available. So type that in, and I'll say OK to that. And assuming I spelled it correctly, you'll see that Calgary has been enlarged to its proper size in that area of the world. So those are just a few of those changes that you can make really quickly with this app, and it's a really good app to have an understanding of what's going on with the data and to make those changes. And when you're done, all you have to do is, we can minimize this, all you have to do is press the update item, and now you've updated that, and that's live in your Arcgis Online account. So that concludes what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to pass it back to Tamara.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andy and Wes. We did have a few questions come in while both of you were presenting. The first question, will pop-ups be made available for vector tiles? And this is for either one of you.
That's something that's still in development as we're in the beta stage, so there will be more information as we advance through the beta period.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question, are there any plans for a GUI to edit and create custom JSON files? So we kind of just already showed that.
Yes, and on the resource PDF that Tamara made available in this webinar, there's also another link to another app. You can share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Let me.
We'll just show this real quickly. There are two links to the apps. There's this other app similar to what Wes was showing, but this one is primarily more JSON code based, but it's the same type of changeability features. You can change the fill color, you can change anything, but you're exposing the code a lot more. So yeah, so there are a couple GUIs out there, and we are looking at what possibilities there are for more.
Okay, great. The next question, I'm going to group a few of these together. A few of you asked, can the vector tiles be used in desktop? Can they be used with Arcgis Pro? Can they be used with ArcMap? So maybe just some clarification with that.
For a desktop version, you'll be looking at Pro 1.3 or later. So they're not currently supported in ArcMap 10X or earlier. But it's Pro 1.3 and more current.
Okay, great. Can you keep these, if you make these changes, can you do them in your portal instead of, ArcGIS Online if you have that implementation?
That, I know we're working on portal for the vector tile base maps. There'll be more information coming on the portal version of the vector tile base maps.
Okay, great, thanks. And then I believe there was a question, if you go in and make these changes, where do they get saved, and it's you log in with your ArcGIS Online account, so they just you just save it to there, correct?
Yes, they'll show up as any of your other contents in the My Content section, and there'll be a tile layer as the format.
Okay, great. And then there's a few questions left. How do you create the vector tiles, and is it only applicable to raster data, or can be done with vector data?
So we actually create the vector tiles from vector data. It is the same data that we do use for our raster maps. We currently have not vectorized our hillshade or imagery, obviously. So we are using vector data to create our vector tiles with a development version of Pro.
Great. And is it possible to eliminate specific features from the vector map? So I know, Wes, you showed turning off a whole layer, for example, but I think they're asking if they only want to see the features in a certain country or state, for example.
Yeah, there's some ability. If you wanted to show just a specific state line, we can't filter that out at this point. But disputed boundaries is a feature where if you want to show a certain disputed boundary, you can filter those IDs and show those elements specific to what your needs are.
Okay, great. And this is going to be the last question. Can I save the modified base map on my desktop for later use or publish through ArcGIS server for my organization?
Not for the vector base maps. They're not server-based.
Okay, and we have, time for one more quick question. This question is asking if one of our raster base maps could be delivered as a vector tile.
The imagery, no. Like a raster base map like World Hillshade, we could vectorize the hillshade, but we most likely don't have plans for that right now. I know we've seen it on some other websites, but we're not currently working on that.
Okay, great. Thank you for your questions, everyone, and thank you both Andy and Wes for your presentation and for answering the questions. Now we're going to go ahead and kind of switch gears over to our elevation presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and switch the presenter here to Rajinder. And we should be able to go ahead and get started here.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to provide an overview of ArcGIS online elevation services available in Living Atlas, how you can access those for visualization and analysis, and in the last, how organizations can contribute their high-resolution data to make these services even better. Elevation data, as we know, supports numerous GIS applications ranging from driving slope, aspect, creating profile, viewshed analysis, ortho rectification, rendering 3D visualizations, creating relief maps, and various types of analysis and visualizations. Esri offers comprehensive collection of world elevation layers, its derivatives, and analysis tools to support the visualization and analysis across the ArcGIS platform. These services provide online access to a global collection of multi-resolution and multi-source elevation data, which includes best publicly available data from USGS, NASA, NGA, and various national mapping organizations and community contributions with resolutions ranging from 1,000 meters to 2 meters. These ready-to-use map layers and tools can be divided into two broad categories: for visualization analysis and for visualization only. Esri makes it easy to work with elevation data by offering two dynamic world elevation image services, terrain and topography. In terrain, ocean is represented as flat with elevation values of 0, while in topography, as name suggests, integrates a topography and bathymetry into one seamless layer. These services have server-side functions defined for such as slope, aspect, which generates on-the-fly derivatives. Since these services and derivatives provide access to actual data values, these are suitable to use as input to analysis in desktop applications. These services also have server functions specifically to generate visualizations such as multi-directional hill shade, slope map, aspect map, elevation tinted hill shade. All these derivatives are generated on the fly and they are not pre-generated. These services provide a single endpoint for desktop and web applications to access elevation values and derived products. The great thing about these services is that you no longer have to store, compile, and process terabytes of elevation data on your local machine. All of these pre- and post-processing that goes along with these type of data sets has been taken care for you. Access to these global elevation layers is free with Arcgis online subscription. Along with these image services, Esri also offers GP services for common tasks such as generating profile, view shed, and summarize elevation. These tasks quickly generate the output without you needing to store, compile, and process authoritative elevation data. These services currently work on a subset of word elevation collection hosted by Esri. These tasks require AWS subscription and consume 1 credit per 1,000 features. For example, if you input 1,000 points or polygons, you will be charged 1 credit. There is, however, profile tool is available as a free version also, which has a limit of 100 features. You can experience the elevation content through Arcgis in multiple ways. It can be accessed through Arcgis online group, which have all the elevation related layers, and it's called elevation layers. You can access from gallery, where you can browse the elevation content from landscape theme. It's a subcategory there, or in web map through add data browse living Eclipse layers. When performing analysis in desktop, a server connection to elevation.arcgis.com would be required. Esri also offers data appliance as an offline solution for clients who need to deploy behind a firewall. Let's explore these services in a quick demo. So like I mentioned, you can search for the elevation layer group, which is owned by Esri. In this case, second is the result. So you can open this group, and it has all the elevation layers, tools, and derivatives products available. So one of the, like I mentioned, main items, main services are terrain and topography. So you can open the terrain, which is available here, to look at details underneath it. So it basically goes over what you can do with this layer, whether it's for visualization or analysis, what are the server functions available on this particular layer, and data sources. And this also has a link to coverage map where you can explore more. So to open this layer, you need to log into your subscription account. So I have already opened this layer in web map, where when you add, by default it will render the orthometric heights, which are basically elevation values. And when you zoom pan, it sends a request to the server and render results from there. So under the terrain, you can click the more options, and from the image display under the renderer, it has all the server functions which are available on this service. So you can, for example, here we can select the elevation tinted hill shade and apply. And what it's going to do is it's asking server the elevation, raw elevation, and then applying this elevation tinted hill shade server function and rendering results back. So as you zoom in, zoom out, or pan, so it's going back to the server, asking the elevation, and then rendering this on the fly. So these are not pre-generated cached like other base maps you normally see. So now I will go and quickly change to grayscale hill shade to give you an idea how quickly it's generating all these derivatives on the fly. Here I'm going to change to multi-direction hillshade, which is one of our most requested item, and you can see how quickly it generates that function. So you can explore various functions available through web map and to consume as a base layer, or if you are interested in analysis, obviously then we will go to the look at the desktop application later. So from analysis, one of the, like I was showing you, a GP task, profile, view shed, and summarization. One of the GP's task is available is create view shed. So under create view shed, what you need to do is basically draw a point wherever you want to create view shed and choose the parameters. So view shed is basically going to give you from that particular location what are the locations visible within 9 miles. You can change obviously that. So to save the time, I already have selected a point here and generated the view shed. So in this case, it generated view shed, and the results are saved into your Arcgis Online item on your Arcgis Online account, from where you can download for to use in desktop also. Now let's quickly look at the desktop. So when you are interested in doing analysis, what you need to do is basically make an Arcgis server connection to elevation.arcgis.com. So in this case, let me show you the properties. You need to provide your subscription account, and once you make that connection, you will see the tools, world elevation, and one image service. So under tools, we have a GP task available, profile, summarize, view shed. Under world elevation, we have the image services, terrain, and topography, and data extents map, which provides a coverage for that. So here I already added the terrain item, and under processing template, you can switch, like I was showing you in the web map, you can switch between different functions available on this service. Since these services are multi-resolution, when you are multi-resolution and multi-source, when you are interested in local analysis, you want to stick to your analysis to a one particular resolution. So in this case, I already have a my interested area where I want to run a quick analysis. So in this case, analysis I'm doing is basically I'm running a clip to get a small set of data which I am interested for my local use. So you can explore from the coverage map what are the different various data sets available. You can do the identify, and it will show you all these different, so basically visible here, and it will show you all various different sources available at this particular location. And you can also identify the terrain item. In terrain item, when you identify, it will show you the data sources available at this particular scale. So here we can see it's showing me a couple of different options I have at this particular location. So for my analysis, I'm interested in net 1 arcsecond, which is a product name here, and which has a resolution of 30 meters. So the product name and dataset ID are two unique fields for each source which we maintain these services. And once from the roster, you can click the info button. So for all these different sources, the service is in Webmacator, but we kept all the sources in their native coordinate system and cell size. So in this case, as I can see, my net 1 arcsecond is basically it's in GCS North American 9083, which is a geographic, it's not projected, and its cell size in degrees. If I quickly look at the properties of the service, so it says the cell size is 2 meters and it's in Webmacator. This is just a shell of the service, and but you can explore or you can request different sources available in this particular service. So in this case, how you can do that? So I have a quick demo here. In this model, what I'm using is make image service layer. This is a tool which you need to use when you are making a request from this service in different coordinate system or cell size. And you can define all these parameters in this. So earlier I was exploring from the info button what are different product name available and what the cell size. That's what I'm putting here. So product name, that's what the value I fetch from that. And then I'm importing the coordinate system I am interested in. And here in this case, I defined the cell size, which is in degrees in this case. So once you do that, it will make a layer. And from that layer, I can I can run a clip. In this case, I'm clipping for my area of interest. And I'm also providing a snap raster where which basically it's aligned my request to what I'm requesting. So once you run this, so what it's going to do is basically making requests from the service, filtering only the net 1 arcsecond, and then it's clipping the data based on my AUI. And it's done, and now we can quickly review what we got. So now we got is cell size is 0.02778 it's in degrees, which is basically 30 meter, and my spatial reference is here is GCS. So you can see these searches are very powerful. You can use them for visualization. You can use for them for analysis. And similarly, if you are interested, you can run a profile, summarize elevation or view shed, one of these tools, and run the analysis and save those results to input into your other GP tools. Let's go back to quickly to my presentation here. So as we have seen in the demo that you can use these dynamic image services and GP services for analysis and visualization. So besides these dynamic services and GP tools, we create a number of information products to support the 2D and 3D visualizations. So Arcgis 3D clients such as Arcgis Web Scene, Pro Scene, and Arcgis Earth comes with default elevation surface to quickly generate 3D oblique views. This surface is a cache-tiled elevation service which encodes elevation values with blur compression and is specifically created for generating 3D visualizations. Whenever you open a global scene, it's preloaded with the elevation surface. You don't have to do anything with it, basically, to add elevation to it. We just released a tile topography elevation service also to provide you oblique views of ocean surface along with land. Later, my colleague Keith will show you how to add topography 3D service in a scene. Arcgis also provides cached version of multi-direction hillshade, such as world hillshade, and trained with label to use as base map layers. We also released a world topo base, which is a newly released base map layer where land use is fused with multi-direction hillshade using no alteration of grayscale and density fusion method that provides a unique vivid look. It's basically designed specifically to work in 3D, but 2D clients can also use that. Let's quickly see the 2D and 3D visuals in a quick demo. Here, when I'm adding a global scene, as I mentioned, this comes with a default elevation surface. And you can go to any different location and look at the oblique views. You can have your other 3D features overlay on this. Like I mentioned, we recently released the topography to provide the oblique views for the ocean surface. And here is another view of ocean along the Hawaii Islands. This is another example of Santa Cruz Basin. And this is another example of the world topo base where I mentioned it's a multi-direction hillshade and land uses fused to provide its unique look. If I switch between the world topo raster base map currently, you can see the let's say the difference between these two. This is another view of Mount Rainier using the world topo base. Now, as I mentioned, you can World Hillshade, which was available as a dynamic image service on terrain and topography image services. We made this available as a cached tile layer also, which you can use as a base map layer. So this is basically, it's a blank tile, you can say slate, where you can put whatever information you would like to put. So this is another view of world topo base in 2D application. You can quickly look at another area in Tennessee and switch between a fourth world hillshade and world topo base. This is another example of State College, and you can look at the difference. And you can use these two base maps as a backdrop to your work. Now my colleague Keith is going to show how you can add the newly released topography layer in your scene and pro scene.
Thanks, Rajinder. So from an oceans perspective, we're really excited about this 3D topography service. And what I want to do is show everyone how to add that into a web scene to where they can consume that service. So I'm going to do that by starting with a web scene where I'm signed in, and inside the contents panel here I can go to the Add Layers button. And the easiest way to search for this content is to type in Topo Bathy 3D Esri. And when you type that in, you see this elevation layer that comes in with a little different icon than the rest of the image services here. That's indicative of it being an elevation layer. And then we can click the Add button here, and I can see that the globe's adjusted and it's been added to my map. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch my base map over to the oceans base map to give some of that perspective of the relief that's built into the oceans base map draped over that bathy. And now what I can do is I can zoom to a place such as Monterey Canyon. And we can take a look and see how this topography service holds up in 3D. So as I zoom in, I can start to pan and tilt around, and you can see some of these 3D built features popping out in the web scene. It'd be really impressive to drape some other data sets over top of this, some side scan or some other benthic habitat as well. So this is a nice 3D service that everyone can add to their web scene, enhance their 3D perspective, and it's global in coverage, and it's available through the Living Atlas. What I'm going to do next is actually show you how to access this in Pro as well. So if you've got Arcgis Pro launched, you can create a new global scene, and let's call this Topo Bathy, and that will launch our Pro project, and it'll create that global scene for us to start with. And from here, you can go into your scene properties just by right-clicking on the scene here, properties, and then there's an elevation surface tab within here. And And right now, it tells you what service it's pulling from. So that terrain service that Rajinder mentioned earlier is what's being loaded in here by default. And we can remove that, and we can hit Add Elevation Service. And what's really cool about Pro, in the version 1.3, I have a connection to the Living Atlas right here inside of Pro as it were on my desktop. And I can do that same search here, and I see that again that elevation service has showed up here. I can click on that and select it, and now that's my new elevation service that's going to be used in this Pro scene. From here, we can take a look at our base map again and switch it over to our oceans base map and locate a place like the Blake Ridge. Not that Blake Ridge, the Blake Ridge down here, and take a look at the 3D service. One thing that is really nice about Pro is I can go back in here to the properties and change my vertical exaggeration of this layer. So if I want to over-exaggerate or exaggerate those terrain features, I can set the exaggeration to 3, wait for that server request to come back, and then it will re-render that. So now I've got a enhanced exaggerated view of this, and you can take a look at the Blake Escarpment there and really see what those features look like underwater in 3D. So I thank you for listening and seeing how that gets added in there, and we hope that you can leverage these 3D services in your work. Back to Rajinder.
Thanks, Keith, for showing this demo. As we have seen that elevation layers and its derivative products are available across the living atlas of the world, and it's a pervasive. So Esri elevation layers incorporates data from various authoritative organizations and creating number of information products which we can use for visualization and analysis. We are excited to bring elevation under community maps umbrella and seeking community contributions to improve these elevation layers in terms of resolution and coverage. So if you are an organization maintaining elevation data for your country, state, or your admin area and have documented authority to share it publicly, then check out our elevation coverage map to determine if you got better data than what we currently have. If the answer to about 2 is yes, then go ahead and apply the community maps for elevation program. Once ESRI accepts your application, data needs to be prepared per specifications doc, which describes the data and metadata requirements, and then you can ship your data to ESRI. So once we see that, then we will review it and contact you if we need some other information or not. So here I'm providing some of the resources that you can use to learn more. And we have also created a story map which you can explore to learn more about these. So whatever I've basically shared you with in my slides is available in this story map, all the links. So there is a short URL for this. So esriurl.com/elevation story map. So if you go to that link, you can explore this story map. So this is basically, this story map covers all the things we already talked about. So it goes over all the elevation layers available for analysis, visualization, 2D, 3D, and then in the last it will provide you a link about the community maps program, and then it has various other further links. So with that, I am handing over to Tamara. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Rajinder and Keith. And there is a link to that story map in the handout, and it'll also be included in the email, in the follow-up email that you'll receive. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. And just, follow up here with some additional housekeeping items. So unfortunately, we didn't have time to get to everyone's questions. So if you do have questions that you asked that we just didn't have time to answer, I know we had a few come through for the elevation presentation here at the end. Please feel free to reach out to the presenters and email them directly. They'd be happy to answer any questions you may have related to the vector tile base maps or to the elevation services. If you have any general feedback, please feel to email me directly, the host. And there will be a survey that you will be prompted to answer when the webinar is finished. Please take a minute to complete the survey. It'll help us continue to improve our webinars. And if you want to be in the know and keep in touch with the Living Atlas, we're really, we socialize a lot through our Living Atlas Twitter account. So please, if you have Twitter, feel free to follow us, and we'll announce things like blog posts, webinars, newsletters, different Living Atlas related activities going on. And the recording will be available online and in the follow-up email that you'll be receiving. And more webinars will be coming soon, so keep a lookout for that. And again, I'd like to thank our audience for attending today's webinar and our presenters for presenting.